All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Got a couple more people here signing on. I really do appreciate y'all being on the webinar here this evening, taking time out of your busy schedule on this wonderful Thursday evening. See, we got some folks here that have attended some of my previous webinars. For those new, first time coming to one of my webinars, I really do appreciate you taking that time. Hopefully, you'll come back for more. I do two or three of these every month. We focus on not only inflation, but everything that we do is related on giving you powerful tools and information to help you in making your retirement strategy fit best for you. And we do everything from Social Security maximization to tax-free retirement to the 4 C's of retirement planning. And then obviously tonight, inflation, protecting your retirement future, as well as other topics that we do. So hopefully you'll get some good information out of this evening, and we hope to have you come back as well. My name is John Reed. I am the president and CEO of JAG Insurance. I'm also a wealth and retirement coach, a chartered advisor. I received my designation from American College of Financial Services over a decade ago, and really focus on helping folks strategize and protect themselves in retirement. The key to retirement, in my opinion, is not so much building up your wealth for retirement, which you should do, but it really is about making sure that you never run out of income in retirement and protecting yourself from the inflationary trends that we have less control over, and it can greatly impact our income and our wealth that we've accumulated in retirement. So hopefully we'll get some of your questions answered this evening. There is a question and answer box there, so I encourage you that if you do have questions, please put that in the question and answer box, and I will answer those questions at the end of this webinar. So I appreciate you being here this evening. So to get some of the legalese out of the way, again, my name is John Reed. I'm with JAG Insurance. I am not an employee of Allianz. You will see that this presentation was developed by Allianz. I'm actually an independent wealth and retirement coach. I work with several different top companies within the financial services industry. I'm not stuck to anyone, which allows me to do my fiduciary duty to make sure that my clients are properly structured with the proper plans and with the right companies for them. So I'm not stuck on any one. Allianz, though, is a big player in the financial services industry. They're one of the largest, in fact, in the entire world. They're one of the largest retirement benefit providers here in the United States of America. But as I mentioned, I do use other companies and other programs. So we're not necessarily sold on one. It's really what is best for you when it comes to retirement. So there we go. And before we begin, again, legalese. That's yours. Before we begin, this is just for general information. There is, I'm not giving you any tax advice or things of that nature. Basically, this is for just information for you to hopefully help you make your decisions and help you strategize for your retirement. Obviously, if you need if you need tax advice, legal advice, things of that nature, go to that type of professional and seek them out for that. This really is for informational purposes only. But let me tell you a little bit about me before we go further. My name, as I mentioned, I'm John Reed. I was born and raised in the Midwest. Kansas and Iowa is where I primarily grew up. In fact, that picture is a picture of what is called Barkus Farms. Barkus Farms is in Wyandotte County, Kansas. Now, that's the most recent picture. It actually really doesn't exist like it did when I grew up. There were 3 homes on the farm, about 1,700 acres. We had cows and pigs and chickens and horses. And yes, I got fresh eggs in the morning and so forth. I lived on that farm till I was about 5.5 years old before my biological father decided he no longer wanted to be married to a woman with 4 kids in 1967 and left. Fortunately for me and my family, my mom met a wonderful man who happened to marry her about 2.5 years later. And I took his last name and changed my first name. I was adopted by him. Wonderful, wonderful man. But even growing up, I butted heads. You know, as teenagers, you know, we sometimes think that we know it all, right? Some of you may experience that with your kids. Well, you know, obviously it just happens, and I knew that I didn't want to go down a particular path in my life. I knew at that time in my life as a teenager getting ready to graduate high school, that I wasn't necessarily ready to go to college, that school was not necessarily my thing. I was bored, but I also knew that I didn't want to go to work for the railroad, which is what my family did a lot. My dad was a railroad engineer, retired. My oldest sister retired from Union Pacific, a railroad, or worked for Union Pacific. Her husband was Union Pacific, to give you an example. It was either that or go to work for the electric company, which is many of my uncles and cousins and so forth did that, or go to work for Nabisco or Sunkist, which had plants there as well. I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my dad and I got in an argument one day. We were talking about the military. My dad, who has since passed away, was a Korean War vet. And I was a scrawny 5'6", 109-pound, scrawny cross-country runner that thought I knew it all. And we butted heads, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go prove you wrong. And fortunately, a little-known organization came knocking, and they said, son, do you want to be one of the few, the proud, and the Marines? And I joined the Marine Corps, and that was the first best decision I made as an adult after graduating from high school, was to join the Marine Corps. It really gave me a lot of discipline. It gave me a lot of direction. It really got me balanced in life. And it was a great experience. I did my 3+ years in the Marine Corps. Fortunately, I finished in the top 5 of my class. I don't say that bragging. I was taught actually computer language. Maybe I should have stuck with that, right? I was taught how to go COBOL and Fortran language back in the late 70s. And because I finished in the top 5 of my class, I got to pick my duty station and ended up picking San Diego MCRD. I fell in love with MCRD when I went to boot camp there. I love the weather. I just love California. I remember one of my sisters went to Disneyland as a kid. I'd only been in 5 states my entire life before joining the Marine Corps: Kansas, Iowa, Missouri, Minnesota, and Arkansas. And that was it. My first plane ride was actually to MCRD San Diego. So fortunately, I got to be stationed back at MCRD San Diego, and that's where my duty station was. And I had the privilege of marrying my beautiful bride, who's there on the left. Her name's Gloria. I met her. She had come to as an immigrant to our country in 1978. Met her in 1980. Married her in 1981, and just that second best decision of my life. I truly married up. If you ever get an opportunity to meet her, you'll know I married up. She's smarter than me. She really is the backbone of our organization. That beautiful young lady there in the middle is our daughter, Ariel, graduate of UCSB, lives in Northern California in the tech industry, just an amazing young lady. And then that person on the right, that's me. This is our picture from Christmas of last year. We get family gathering every Christmas Eve, and we stay up past midnight. All of our family from all over California and even other parts of the country sometimes come in, and we celebrate. And that little black beauty that my daughter's holding, that is Ray. That is Ray from the planet of Jakku. That is the true love of my life, as I say sometimes. She's very special to us. Our daughter rescued her between her sophomore and junior year of college, and a year later she became our dog and just fell in love with our dog. And you'll see in our logo, we actually have a dog in our logo. That was our dog Junior that we had, and the initials of our family, Jag, is part of the logo there. J-A-G, J for myself, A for Ariel, our daughter, and G for Gloria. And it was actually our daughter at a young age, when she was about 12 years old, that came up with the name Jag for us. So we are, that building you see there, that is Stewart Plaza in the city of Upland here in Southern California. We are in our 22nd year here in Southern California. We are a wholesale insurance marketing organization. We have over 30 active full-time brokers and retail storefront insurance brokerages that we work with here in Southern California, as well as personally help individuals such as you come up with retirement plans that meet your specific health and budget needs, as well as retirement goals as well. We meet with our clients either virtually or in our office in Upland, whatever convenient for you. So what we want to address here tonight is the risk of inflation in retirement. And if it's not addressed, it can chip away at your retirement. I mean, there's a lot of risk, unfortunately. We are talking about spending and life expenses. As we know, inflation is skyrocketing right now. For those of us that lived in the 70s, like me, I just turned 60. I'm on the far end of the baby boomer, or almost at the end of the baby boomer age group. And I remember those those days. I remember the first house that my wife and I bought in 1984. It was 11.9% interest. Our second house in 1987 was 9.9% interest, and even our third house that we bought in 2003 was in the sixes at that particular time. So it really can have an impact on retirement when it comes to market volatility and the issues that are related based on those things, as well as healthcare, Medicare, and other issues like that. And the key is to really address those, understand those certain elements that can impact you in retirement, and that way you have an opportunity to address those before they even happen. Now, modest rates of inflation, it's a long-term reality. That's the reality. Problems occur if it's not dealt with, and we are going through that right now, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. But the sooner that one realizes the impact of inflation on retirement, you can take steps to even protect against that. Even a modest inflation of 2.5% means that the costs are going to double every 28 years. So the cost of bread, the cost of gas, the cost of everything is going to double over the next 28 years just based on 2.5% inflation. Again, we are in a higher inflationary area right now than it's been almost 50 years, 40 plus years since we've seen this type of inflation. And a lot of folks may have not experienced these high inflation periods that we're going through right now versus some of us that are maybe a little bit older during that time. And in actuality, the inflation rate since 1922 for the last 100 years has averaged 2.8%. So I know the Feds try to keep it around 2%, 2.5%, and it's been pretty much there, but we've had situations throughout the years where it's been higher. We're going to touch on those. And in fact, tonight we're going to touch on inflationary trends, the concerns around that, the rising health costs because of inflation and how to maybe mitigate some of those costs, and then maybe some next steps that you can take as well. So what are some of the inflationary trends that are taking place? Well, first of all, let's understand what kind of some of the inflationary types are. You have what is called demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation basically is that the amount of demand that people want of certain supplies is not there because of, for whatever reason, they can't manufacture them. Now, in today's world, we know that unfortunately, that due to supply chain issues, that a lot of store shelves are empty, and that has helped fuel the inflation that has taken place. You also have the cost caused by drop in supply due to increases in cost, and natural disasters can also exacerbate the inflationary trends within our country. The downside is both of these are happening right now, which is extremely rare, where that we do not have the supplies because of the supply issue, and we don't have the ability to be able to get those into the system. What's also fueling it is the excess cash that we have in the system. I just read an article that there's $2.9 trillion in savings and retirement accounts that Americans have today, more than at any time in history. The influx of the stimulus during the COVID lockdowns and things of that nature have put a ton of money in the system without the supply being there. So you actually have both of those coming together, and together that's what's helping fuel the skyrocketing inflation. In fact, I just watched a webinar earlier where they're talking about the cost of living increase for Social Security recipients and veterans could be as high as 10.5% in 2023 based on the inflation for 2022. That hasn't happened in over 40 years. Now, there are different types of inflation, and you've probably heard of them. Hyperinflation. We've seen many countries throughout the world that have had hyperinflation. I just read somewhere in Sri Lanka, to give you an example, their inflation is something like 700,000%. That's crazy. Then you have stagflation, which is slow economic growth and high unemployment. We've been there in the past. We're not there necessarily today. Deflation, a sustained decline in the general level of prices. Don't we kind of wish that would happen, especially with gas prices? And we're not there. And disinflation, which is the slowing in the rate of inflation, and hopefully we can get to that over the next couple of years. So why is inflation seen negatively? Well, first of all, it hurts savers. The reality of it is the value of the dollar, when inflation skyrockets, the value of the dollar goes down. I had a good friend of mine ask the other day, is when are the banks going to raise their interest rates? Well, what are the bank's interest rates now? They're still under 1% for a traditional savings account. They're typically still under 2% for a CD or something of that nature. I've seen some where they offer 3.5%, maybe 4% for the first year, and then it's locked in at lower than 1%. You have to keep it. It really does hurt savers when inflation just eats away at the dollar. It leads to higher interest rates. We're already seeing that in the mortgage market. The current 30-year mortgage market is above 5.5% right now. Now, for some of us, like me and those in my age group, 5.5 doesn't sound all too bad. But again, over the last 20, 25 years, we haven't seen those kind of interest rates for mortgages. And a lot of people have never experienced mortgage rates at these kind of 5 and 6% levels that we're starting to see now. But those were actually pretty good mortgage rates. I wish I would have got that when I bought my first house or even my second house, to give you an example. And it definitely influences people when they're going to buy something. Again, I read another article earlier this week where it talked about when it comes to remodeling homes and things of that nature, that has dropped by about 20% in the month of June alone. Why is that? And that is because people are waiting to see if potentially, we all know what happened to the lumber prices and the things like that when it came to home improvement that skyrocketed over the last year. Well, some of those things are starting to come down, so people are holding off in doing their remodels and so forth. So it actually helps create a lower inflationary environment because there's less people purchasing stuff. But there's still a lot of money in the system. And obviously it's hated by voters, of course. When there's high inflation, we want change. We want action. We want things to be taken care of. And politicians are the ones that are going to typically get the blame for that. Now, can inflation be good? Well, some people support, or some economists believe, that inflation can be good. And to a certain point, I guess it possibly could, as long as income exceeds the rate of inflation. In many cases that has. Now, currently, that's not the case. We saw already for June that inflation grew by 9.1%, but the average payroll only went up 5.8%. So you're actually earning less active money. And what I mean by that is your dollar is not going as far. So you actually have less money to spend on the things that you would normally spend because your dollar's not worth as much as it used to be. Now, inflation is measured by the CPI. And I don't want to be very confusing here. There are basically 4 different elements to CPI that are used. The one that you hear about on the news is called the core CPI. That is the inflation rate that excludes the food and energy. But there are 3 other elements within the CPI that are used by the IRS, are used by Social Security. Those are things that determine what the cost of living increases are going to be in Social Security and veterans benefits. It's used on what's the maximum that can be contributed to an IRA, whether it be a Roth or a regular IRA or traditional IRA, and those types of things based on age. So they use these different CPIs basically determine how much of an increase they're going to do in those particular figures and what they use them for. Okay, and that all changed in 2017 when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act took place. In that they used the CCPIU, which is the overall index that includes all the core things that we purchase in today and how that impacts when it comes to what the tax levels are going to be when you file taxes. And as I said, that's IRS, what the Roth and IRA and things of that nature are used in order to determine what those maximum numbers are and how they are going to impact you. Now, as I mentioned, the average inflation since 1922 has been 2.8%. Not bad, especially if the payroll has gone up more than that. In most cases, it has. And you can see here through the decades, the inflation rates. And you'll see there in the 1970s that I was talking about previously, inflation averaged 7.05% for that entire decade, more than any other decade in the last 60 years. So a lot of people have not experienced these high inflationary rates. Now they're experiencing it in 2022. In fact, we're all experiencing it in 2022. And you can see there at the peak in 1974 and again in 1979, they were at 11% or higher was the annual inflation rate. 1975, 9.1. So you can see today's inflation of 9.1 is the highest it's been in over 40 years. You see 11.3, so 43. It's been a long time since inflation has hit over that 9.1%. And today it's 9.1% for 2022. And as I said, I was on a webinar earlier today, which talked about they're looking at the year to finish at about 10.5%. That's what they're expecting the cost of living increases for Social Security and veterans is going to be based on, and they take the third quarter of 2022 and compare it to the third quarter of 2021, and that goes for the increases in the cost of living for those benefits for 2023. So it's not going to change anytime soon. In fact, wholesale inflation, I just read this morning, is at 23.4%. That's wholesale. Now, that's going to impact the retail, obviously, because not everybody not all companies, not all grocery stores, not all retailers can eat some of that or eat all of that. Some are eating some of it. You know, I have clients that are, losing money at their gas station and hopefully are making it up on people coming in and purchasing. But even that's down. People aren't coming in because they're spending so much money on the gas. So let's address some of the inflation concerns. Well, first of all, we have to prepare and think about longevity. I do a Social Security maximization webinar, and you'll receive an invite. My next one's on Thursday, August 4th. And in that, I talk about when Social Security was passed in 1935 and took effect on January 1st, 1936, you had to be 65 years of age in order to qualify for Social Security. What do you think the life expectancy was at that point in time? Guess what? It was less than 65, or right at about 65, depending on which statistic you look at. They didn't expect people to be collecting on Social Security, and definitely not for decades. Well, the truth of the matter is we are living longer and longer. In fact, it's not unusual. In fact, there's going to be 1 million Ontarians, they say, by the year 2030. And we are living longer and longer. So you can see on this chart, a woman age 65 today has an 86% chance of living to age 75. A man 79, and a married couple, one of them has a chance, at least one has a chance of living to 75, 97% chance. Now, go all the way fast forward to 85, 55% chance that a woman will live to age 85 that's currently 65 today. A man 44, and at least one person in a couple, a married couple, 75% chance they'll live to age 85. Dang, that's 20 years in retirement if you take it at age 65. Now, full retirement age today, I'll tell you, is 67. If you were born after January 1st, 1960, and it's tiered for those that are born before then. That's probably going to change. You've all heard it in the news that Social Security supposedly runs out of money in 2034. Not really. Social Security is not going away, in my opinion. But they are going to have to make some changes. They made some changes to the required minimum distributions in the last tax act from 70.5 to 72, to give you an example. They're going to have to change when we can collect Social Security. I foresee the day that being able to collect at age 62 is probably going to go away. Maybe the first time will be 65 or 67. And then maybe 70 or 72 is full retirement age, and maybe 72 to 75 will be where you can get the maximum benefit. I don't know. It's just my opinion, having a good understanding of Social Security. But again, just my opinion. Not going away, but they are going to have to make some adjustments. But one of the things that we have to do, each one of us that are planning for retirement, and I'm not too far off. As I said, I just turned 60 a couple months ago. In that we have to plan for the fact that we have a very good chance of living a long time in retirement. And Social Security was never, ever, ever meant to be the sole source of income in retirement. And today it accounts for about 42% of that retirement income. So we need to plan for that. We need to plan for the inflation as well, because inflation can have an impact. Think about it. A loaf of bread in November of 2002 cost $1.05. In November of 2021, it was $1.55. Now, I just bought a loaf of bread on Monday of this week. I wish I would have paid $1.55. It was $3, so I don't know where the $1.55. The eggs that I bought on Monday, $4.99 for a dozen. Bananas, right in there, 69 cents a pound. Chicken, we were right in there. In fact, we paid less than $1.58 a pound for the chicken. And the milk was right in there. So different things have gone up at different, paces. In fact, I saw something on the news the other day where eggs have actually gone up 37% so far this year in price. So it's not too far off to imagine that inflation is here to stay, and it's going to have an impact, especially in retirement when we have less time and ability to be able to recoup losses from our investments, as well as increase our income as well. And you can see the average inflation over the last 20 years has only been 2.14%. So we are in a time of complete difference that most people haven't experienced in their lifetime, unless they're in my age group of around 60 plus. We've experienced that. A lot haven't. Our great grandparents experienced the Great Depression. So this is something new for a lot of people that we're going through. So the thing that we should consider, John C. Morton of Harvard Business Review said, when we talk about retirement and we're planning for retirement, we have been taught about it all wrong. We have been taught about building up wealth, build up this wealth. And then when you retire, you take 4, 5, 6% of that each year, and you should never run out of money. Well, that philosophy has really been proven not so good anymore. In fact, if you think about just 2 years ago, in March of 2020, what happened to most of the retirement portfolios in the stock market in March of 2020? It dropped by 40% over about a 2 to 3 week period of time. I had clients that were planning to retire that had to pull back, that they may have had $1 million in their retirement, ready to retire, and overnight it dropped $200,000, $300,000, even $400,000 virtually overnight, and they were not able to retire. So retirement timing is also critically important as well, and protecting what you've built up. So that formula in the past does not necessarily work. And by the way, I'll tell you, nothing wrong with financial advisors. I used to be one, gave up all my securities license over a decade ago. I work with some financial advisors. Financial advisors are wonderful. They teach, they're taught how to build wealth, how to create wealth for you. The problem is they're not necessarily taught how to actually turn that wealth into a guaranteed lifetime income stream that you can never run out of, ensure that you live in a peace of mind, in a financial peace of mind when it comes to retirement. That's what we do here at JEG. We made that switch over a decade ago because we saw that a lot of folks that were taught and shown to build up this wealth, unfortunately, in some cases, they were running out of money much faster than they expected because of the volatility within the marketplace. We have strategies that can help prevent that. But how do you outlive your assets? Well, let's assume that you've built up $500,000 in retirement assets to supplement your Social Security. And let's assume that you're going to get a 6% average rate of return, which is a decent rate of return if you average it out. 6% every year. Now, we both know that that's not going to happen. And let's assume that inflation averages 3% per year as well over the next 10 years. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not going to happen, but the reality of it is is that it's averaged about 2.8, except for the last 20 years. So that's probably a pretty good figure. So you put in that 500,000, you're going to get a 6% average annual rate of return. You have a 3% inflation. Your money should last you about 23 years. Not bad, okay? And that's if you get a 6% return every single year. Well, what happens if in the first year, like 2022, 20% drop? Now you're automatically down to 400,000. Now you're not going to be able to recoup. You're not going to be able to take that money out over that period of time because you have less in there to do that. If you only take 5% out, then it'll last longer. Excuse me. If you take 4% out, it'll last to age 110. But what if you take 8% out? Then it's only going to last 15 years. Again, that's based on an annual inflation rate of only 3% and an average rate of return of 6% every year, consecutively every year. You and I both know that's not necessarily how it works. And like I said, if you have a 20% drop, which we've had in 2022, if you have a 20% drop, your 500,000 now is down to 400,000. Now you're retiring with less, and it can impact you significantly. One of our agents' fathers experienced this in that because of his portfolio, he did everything the financial advisor told him to do over the years, and so forth. And what happened was this year he was taking out his $50,000 a year based on 5%, 5%, done well. But based on this year, he was only able to take out a little over 36,000 because of the drop in his portfolio. So he took a pay cut of about 20%, and inflation's up 9%. He's basically lost about almost a third of his spending power in retirement. Now he's in his 80s. He has no ability really to make that income up. And in fact, that's why that agent came on board with us, our company here, because she's on a mission to let folks know that the difference once you've built up that wealth, how to protect that wealth. And in fact, a 10% drop or more could significantly reduce your income in retirement. Absolutely. On top of that, what about healthcare costs? We're all worried about healthcare. We hear about Medicare's running out of money. We hear, that they want to do Medicare for all, and they got to make changes to Medicare and things of that nature. And they probably will. Healthcare premiums have been going up significantly over the last 20 to 30 years, and even more so since the Affordable Care Act was passed and implemented in 2012, 10 years ago. It has gone up significantly then. Now, what I do love is, and we do provide health benefits for our clients, what I love is that some of these programs out there, they talk about, oh, we're only having a 2% increase in our health, in their premiums, but what they don't talk about is the deductibles going up 15, 20%. The copays are going up 15, 20%. So they want to be able to say that they're only having a 2.8% or 3% increase in rates, but they're actually raising how much more out of pocket you have to pay before they even kick in and pay anything. And in fact, the average cost of healthcare for a family is 8.4% of their income. For retirees 65% or over, 65 years of age or older, it's 14% of their income goes to healthcare premiums. And healthcare premiums in general have gone up far more than even inflation. As you see over the last 22 years, inflation has gone up 60%. Earnings have gone up 90%, so that's a good thing. But look at that. Premiums for health insurance and health benefits have gone up 284% over that same period of time. And healthcare benefits and health insurance premiums and healthcare premiums continue to rise at a much higher pace than actual inflation does, even higher than the 9.1%. In retirement, an average couple can expect to spend $352,000 on medical benefits in retirement. Now, a lot of that does have to do with prescription drug programs. That's probably one of the biggest issues I get from our clients that are on Medicare has to do with the prescription drug benefits. By the way, prescription drug benefits weren't even available through Medicare until 2006. So prior to that, they had to go out and buy their own programs beforehand. But now, fortunately, they're available through Medicare, and the premiums are fairly reasonable. But expenses for an 85-year-old are much higher than a 65-year-old when it comes to healthcare benefits. You can see there, 232% more for an 85-year-old than it is for a 65-year-old. Now, you can mitigate some of those expenses by having a Medicare Advantage program or a Medicare Supplement program. Now, when you turn age 65, if you've worked at least 40 quarters, 10 years, you get Part A, which is your hospitalizations, and we're going to touch on that, free. You pay a Part B premium, and we're going to touch on that as well. Medicare Advantage programs, you can switch to that. Some of you may already have that, where there is no premium, and their maximum out of pockets are usually less than $1,000, and it includes prescription drug programs. Or a Medicare supplement that allows you to go to any doctor, any hospital, anywhere that accepts Medicare. And there's programs out there where you just pay the Part B deductible of $233, and then it's a 100% plan. That doesn't include your prescription drugs. So there are ways to mitigate your healthcare costs in retirement. The key is finding someone who understands that and someone that can steer you in the right direction to a plan that's going to meet your specific health and budget needs. And when it comes, if you work for an employer, only 27% of corporations with 200 or more employees in the country even offer retiree health benefits. In fact, only 4% offer pension plans as well. I touch on that in my Social Security maximization webinars as well. So the reality of it is the vast majority of us are going to have to go out and get on a Medicare program. You can either do original Medicare or Medicare Sup or Medicare Advantage, which I will definitely touch on. Now, about Medicare, how do you become eligible? Well, it's the first day of the month you turn age 65. So even if you turn age 65, let's say in August 20th, your benefits begin August 1st. You have to enroll to receive the Medicare benefits. You don't have to get your Social Security benefits. You can wait for that if you want to wait to your full retirement. And if you want to know more about Social Security and how to maximize that, again, I encourage you to sign up for my August 4th webinar, okay? And then when you enroll in Medicare Part A and Part B, then there is a premium for that Part B. And the Part B and Part D premiums are means tested, meaning it's totally based on your income. So what are the parts of Medicare? You have Part A and Part B. Now, it can be confusing because the Medicare supplement plans are also letters. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, Plan, Part A, Part B, that is known as original Medicare. So when you turn age 65 and you opt into original Medicare and you take the Part B, you have Part A and Part B. Part A is for your hospitalizations. Part A, you're going to have a deductible. It's $1,553 this year, 2022. And it's an 80-20 plan, meaning that you'll pay 20% of the cost and the government will pay 80% of the cost of those hospitalizations, okay? Part B is your outpatient stuff. That's your doctor visits and your outpatient stuff. Again, it's an 80-20 plan. 80% is paid by the Medicare after the $233 deductible, and then you'll pay 20%. Those do not come with Medicare prescription drug programs. Part D is your prescription drug program. There are different programs out there, and depending on the prescription drugs you take will determine which is going to be the best program for you. Now, Part C combines A, B, and D typically into one called Medicare Advantage plans. Now, there are some Medicare Advantage plans out there that do not have Part D as part of their coverage. Most of the good ones, though, in my opinion, actually have the Part D coverage as part of it. And usually there's no premiums for those, with the exception of Part B. You will always pay Part B premium unless you receive low income subsidies, depending upon your income. And again, I touch on those in my Social Security maximization webinar. So at age 65, original Medicare is Part A and B, and then you need to get Part D. If you don't get Part D when you first become eligible, there is a penalty for each month you don't get it for the rest of your life. And that goes for Part B too. For each year you don't get it that you should have got it, it's a 10% penalty for each year you didn't get it for the rest of your life. Now, what makes you where you don't have to require to do it. If you have an employer group program, it's a qualified group program, then you don't have to get on the program. If you're a veteran, I'm a veteran, being a military Marine Corps vet, I get my benefits through the VA. You don't necessarily have to apply for those benefits, even though the VA is going to want you to do Part A. You already paid for it, it's there. You also have access to Medicare, Medicaid, which in California is Medi-Cal. These are based on for low-income individuals and those of those folks. It is subject to the federal and state guidelines to be able to qualify, and it varies from state to state. Now, your Part B premiums that everybody pays, unless you're low-income subsidized, and then it's paid through the Medi-Cal programs, is $170.10 per month. Also, if you do your Part D program, that averages about $43 per month. And actually, one of the best programs we have is $42.50 a month, that most of our clients get on. And then your Medigap, that's your program that typically will cover the 20%, the deductibles that Medicare doesn't cover. Now, unfortunately, the Plan F in Medicare Medigap plans no longer is available for those that turn age 65 after January 1st, 2020. That plan basically created a 100% plan with the exception of prescription drug. That's gone away. But the most popular plan, Plan G, still does everything Plan F does, with the exception you would still be required to pay that Part B deductible of $233, and then it's a 100% plan. But even taking that into account, if you look at it, at 65, if you decide to go to the Medigap route, you're looking at potentially about $358 a month in monthly premiums. Now, I don't know about you, but right now we pay over $1,000 a month just for my wife's health insurance program through a Blue Shield PPO. So going down to a plan that allows her to go to any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the country that accepts Medicare assignment for about 40%, less than 40% of what we're paying for her program now, that's awesome, you know. But some people do want that Medicare Advantage with no premiums, and there's some ups and downs to that. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions on that. So on an average couple, you're looking at about $8,500 a year for the premiums for your Medicare programs, for your health insurance. That's for two people. That's still far less, in my opinion, especially here in California, than what we're paying now. Not a bad deal, unless you make more than $91,000 a year as an individual, or $182,000 as a couple, which is real common here in the state of California. Your premiums are going to be much higher. I have clients paying as much as $450 a month for their Part B premiums because of the income that they make. Yes, they can afford it, but that's beside the point. It all is all income based. Okay. So that's your Medicare. What about long-term care? Now, you hear a lot about that. Over 70%, I think the recent statistics, 71% of us will need long-term care in some form or fashion over our lifetime once we reach age 65. And in fact, the average semi-private room long-term care right now, based on 2020 statistics, is $105,850 per year. You may be surprised to know, though, currently over 70% of those receiving long-term care benefits receive in-home health care. In fact, I was on a webinar a couple months ago with Mutual of Omaha, and they talked about where 91% of their new claims were based on in-home health care, or for in-home health care, if I understand it right. Here's the downside to long-term care insurance. It's very expensive, it's hard to qualify for, and it's a use it or lose it proposition. Now, you may be thinking, well, do I sell long-term care insurance? Yes, but I don't sell a lot of it because of those three factors. There are alternatives to long-term care. There's in-home healthcare plans out there that start at under $100 a month, $95 a month, that you can utilize, and there's no medical qualifications. There's living benefits life insurance that gives you chronic illness coverage that you can tap into the face value. There are alternatives to traditional long-term care insurance. They're not long-term care insurance, but they're alternatives that can help, again, mitigate the impact of the cost of healthcare benefits as you go into retirement. So what are some of the things that you can do to help ensure that you have peace of mind and you have the financial security that you want in retirement? One is analyze your income needs based on inflation's impact and the potential of long-term retirement. In fact, we offer a free report. It's called the Retirement Income Shortfall Analysis. It's called a RISA report. And in that RISA report, we'll show you based on currently what you're doing, what you're looking at, the probability of never outliving your income in retirement versus some suggestions. If we make some suggestions and say, if you take these steps, this is what the probability would be. That's free. We do that for all of our clients. Doesn't cost you anything. We actually have a host of actuaries that, I mean, these are numbers crunchers. They put it in this system that looks at 1,000 different algorithms to match and get a report that really accurately reflects your specific situation. It's not a cookie cutter report where everybody gets the same thing. Review the impact of high inflation and low interest rates on rates that you get on your retirement benefits. It may be wise to look at things and ways to be able to secure what you've built up and create a guaranteed lifetime income stream. One of the things I teach about in some of my seminars is about the 3 buckets of money. When it comes to retirement, you have 3 buckets of money. You have your taxable income. That's your working income, your savings and things of that nature. Then you have your tax deferred income. Those are your Roth IRAs and your 401ks and those types of programs. And then you have your tax free. That's your Roth IRAs and your your permanent life insurance with cash value buildup. Don't let that shock you, but a lot of folks use cash value life, even more so today. To protect what they've built and create a guaranteed lifetime income stream that's tax-free. It helps create tax-free retirement. Discuss annuity options and the steady stream of lifetime income that can provide. There's a big myth out there about annuities and that they have these exorbitant fees and so forth like that. Not necessarily true. In fact, many of the annuities that we offer have 0 fees. The only fees come with the riders. Now, I know some variable annuities may have fees and so forth. We don't offer those types of products. I don't do variable products. Just my opinion, I don't necessarily believe in variable products. It may work for you, but for the vast majority of clients that we work with, they don't necessarily work. But there's programs out there that can give you a reasonable rate of return, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8% on an annual basis, give you a guaranteed lifetime income that you can never outgrow and can grow each year to help protect and hedge against inflation. When you're getting ready to retire, you've built up that wealth, you may want to consider at least looking at some of those options of putting a portion of your retirement in a guaranteed way to ensure that you never outlive your income. And then consider a long-term care policy or riders and in-home healthcare plans, as I discussed, to help supplement some of the rising cost of healthcare. And then consider permanent life insurance with living benefits included in to help supplement. Living benefits life insurance is the fastest growing life insurance in America today, from my understanding. And what it does, it acts kind of like a pool of money where you can tap into the face value of that policy while you're alive for a major critical chronic illness, a terminal illness, critical injury in some cases as well. While you're alive, even on term policies, while you're alive, that you can tap into the face value of that policy and use those funds to help offset some of the impact of these health-related issues. Well, I hope you enjoyed my webinar this evening. We went through the inflationary trends, inflationary concerns, rising health costs, some next steps that you can possibly take. I highly encourage you that if you have questions that you want answered on a one-on-one basis, I highly encourage you to reach out to me as well. Again, this is for general information. Tonight was not intended to give you any legal advice, tax advice. You'll seek out those tax and legal professionals that can help you do that. I really do appreciate you being on the webinar this evening. If you'd like to schedule a free one-on-one consultation with me, feel free to call me directly at 909-921-5356, or you can email me at jreed@jag-ia.com, or you can copy that Calendly link down. Feel free to schedule one with me. I'm actually going to be sending out a recording of this webinar on Monday with that link in there that you can schedule and review this at your convenience as well. Be glad to answer any questions that I can for you. And if I can't get you the question answered, I can direct you into the place that can. I work with financial advisors and others within our industry to get you the information that you need. Any questions? Let me see if there's any questions. Doesn't look like there is. So again, thank you very much for being on this webinar. I really appreciate you taking time this evening out of your busy schedule. And I just want to wish you an amazing and blessed remainder to your week and your weekend. You take care. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.